For years, a deadly disease was ignored, underfunded, and neglected.
Because it was treated like a Black disease, it became underfunded and under-researched.
At times, the medical system fails us and causes lifelong trauma.
The hospital did force a blood transfusion on me as a child. I'm in my 40s now, and I still have to live with those things.
When you are born with a disease, you cannot outrun danger, fear, and adversity.
When you're born with any disease, you are literally born to be a warrior. Every day that you fight that disease, fight that disorder, you're proving that you're bigger than it.
Your blood, your health, don't let it slide. Stand up, speak out. Let the truth collide. No transfusion yet, there's a fight inside. Your blood, your health, it's yours to decide.
I'm just meeting her for the first time, but she's already kind of stolen my heart. Her name is Syreeta Wright, and she is an author of children's books and a patient advocate. And obviously, she's a warrior. We're going to talk about all of that today. Syreeta has lived with sickle cell anemia. I have never met anyone personally with sickle cell. I've always been interested, and now I get to pick someone's brain. I want to know all about that journey, and I'm bringing you along to educate you as well. Syreeta, welcome to Let's Talk Patient Blood Management.
Hello, thank you. Thank you, Sarah, for having me.
And Syreeta, you was diagnosed with sickle cell anemia at what age?
We finally got a diagnosis at 4. Every time my mom retells the story, I would be an infant and I would just scratch my face. I would have blood and everything, like writhing in pain, and doctors had no idea what was wrong with me. It took her coming to a hospital here in Philadelphia. We're waiting in the hallway, and the doctor took one look at my stomach and said, "How long has you been treating her for her sickle cell?" And my mom's like, "She doesn't have sickle cell," because she knew she carried the trait, and they got tested before they had me. But he just brought me back, didn't argue, did the blood test, and was like, "Well, your daughter has sickle cell."
What was it about your stomach that gave away the indication that you might have sickle cell?
What is typical in sickle cell children is that our spleen becomes enlarged when we are having repetitive crises, especially when they go untreated. And so I would have had an extremely enlarged spleen that made my stomach look very distended. One look and was like, "Oh, this is what you have."
What a insightful physician. I know your mother, although she knew she was a carrier, she had taken steps previous to having children.
Yes.
She knew this was a genetic disease. She wanted to make sure probably that she didn't pass it on. She was probably making decisions on whether or not to have children. Can you tell me a little bit about your mom and dad and their story?
Yes. My mother had a friend that passed away from sickle cell. So she was very aware of how dangerous the disease can be. Her friend actually passed away giving birth to her first son. This is in the late 70s that occurred, and it stuck with her. So she was very conscious to ask the question about your genes. And back in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s, they test for sickle cell. Before you even got married, they did genetic testing. But what they never really tested for was thalassemia, which is another genetic blood disorder. Most likely my father carried the beta thalassemia trait. And those two together create sickle cell beta thalassemia, and which is what my official diagnosis became.
For those of us who don't know much about sickle cell, can you just teach us a little bit about what sickle cell is?
Yes. Okay. Sickle cell is a genetic blood disorder where the red blood cells actually are supposed to be round and carry oxygen to the rest of your body and tissues. And when they become sickle, they lose that shape, that round shape, and they form a sickle or a C, and the oxygen is now gone. Because there's no longer oxygen, it becomes hard, it becomes sticky, and they can attach to other sickle cells. And when too many of them are formed in one place, now they're creating a blockage. So blood cannot flow freely to those areas of the body. And now you're having oxygen deprived tissues, tissues become damaged, and that's very, very painful when that occurs.
When I was reading your book, and you can tell me, like, no, Sarah, this is nothing like that. But the only thing I can think of is that one time I had a kidney stone, and the ureter, which is the tube that passes from our kidneys to into our bladder, is, I would think, about the size of a vessel. That pain was the most excruciating pain I have ever experienced, worse than childbirth.
Mhm.
Is that what you feel when your cells sickle?
That is a very close estimation. Like, I personally had gallstones, and it's the same exact instance where it's not, those ducts are blocked and things can't get out or get it. And it's so painful, and you're crippled over, and there's nothing you can do. Like, you can't, there's no remedy except for medical intervention at that point. There's no home
Okay.
remedies for these. So that's
Okay.
exactly the kind of severity and pain when that occurs.
When your blood cells start to sickle, do they sickle all over or just kind of in a one location?
That can depend. The sickle cells are all through your blood. If they're sickling in one particular part of the body, yes, it can be contained to that area where just my legs are affected. But I've had instances where my sickle cell has been in multiple places at once. So I can have a crisis of sickling in my chest, which is the acute chest syndrome. I've had it in both legs, in both arms. So it really can occur anywhere that there's blood. And what's dangerous is that you have a heart, lungs, your brain, that blood goes to those areas too. And if there's sickle cells happening, now you have an increased risk of stroke. You could have a heart attack. You have pulmonary hypertension. There are a lot of complications of where sickling occurs that, if you do not intervene quickly, can be a very life-threatening crisis in that instance.
Oh, is there specific things that bring on a sickle cell crisis? Or is it just random that you'll be going along feeling great and then have a crisis?
So I used to say it was random. As I did more research on this disease and truly understand the mechanics, a lot of it is very situational, where extreme heat, extreme cold can be a trigger. You can have stress that could be a trigger, very strong emotions. You can have an injury, an infection. Any of those things can actually exacerbate your sickle cell and create a crisis. I've had a cold or flu, and when I go to get it treated, I have to also add the caveat that you're not just treating this flu, you're also helping me prevent a sickle cell crisis. So I need this, and this done. When they listen to me, hopefully we can avoid the complication. But sadly, I've been in instances where the hospital staff did not listen, and then they caused a crisis. Trying to
Oh.
treat one thing and they ignore the other thing, and then it's like, now we gotta add another layer of a fight.
There was a 25% chance of your parents having a sickle cell child. Is genetics a factor as far as male or female?
At each pregnancy, you roll the dice at each pregnancy. It's 1 in 4.
Okay.
her
Okay.
pregnancy. So it's just so happened that I became the
Got it.
1 in 4 out of all my mother's pregnancies that ended up with the only one with the disease.
Also read that sometimes it's so bad that you have had to be in a wheelchair.
Yes. I lost the ability to walk for 2 weeks. I had the wheelchair, then I had crutches. So you just kind of pivot with whatever life throws at you.
When you were growing up, did you know other children with sickle cell or did you feel alone?
I personally felt very alone. I did not meet my first sickle cell patient until my teens. A friend of mine, his name was Michael, he had sickle cell. He was older than me. And I noticed that he was a lot more sick than I was. Every time I saw him and or heard about him being sick with it, put things in perspective that, well, I'm dealing with this, but I'm not as bad as Mike because I've seen so many more complications than I've ever experienced with this disease that I really feel fortunate that as bad as I've had it, I have not had it as bad as many.
I love in the book that you brought out that sickle cell is not a Black person's disease because I have to say, in the medical field, it's kind of spun that way. Can you speak to that a little bit? I mean, obviously, that point was important enough to you to include it.
Yes. Because it was treated like a Black disease, it became underfunded and under-researched. But when you get out of the United States and look at the global impact of this disease, now you're finding Caucasian, Italian, Greek, Asian, all kinds of races carrying this gene and having this disease.
It's even sad that it being a Black person's disease would be underfunded. That is sad in itself. But I do remember a hematologist friend that had a sickle cell clinic, and he was so frustrated because he felt like it was a disease of Black and underprivileged people and therefore was not getting the attention.
Yep.
What is the state of research today? Is it getting the attention that it deserves?
It is still not there yet. We are working very hard to change that and to make sure the narrative has changed. And when I write about things, I add a caveat as to why should you care about sickle cell? Because a lot of people are like, what's in it for me? Which I don't blame that. Because again, everyone has an issue. We're all having problems. But when we take on something, even if it doesn't personally affect us, it still trickles down.
Mhm.
So the genetic testing, because of the need of genetic testing before birth, sickle cell actually helped to further that research and making sure that infants are diagnosed early. Anyone who's a parent can appreciate the fact that because sickle cell exists, now they get to have the heads up on what it is that their child may be facing while it's in the womb.
Yeah. You were such a warrior on many fronts. And the reason that I personally bought your book, and I'm going to show it, I personally bought your book is because I have a granddaughter and I think she's a warrior. Even though she is healthy and doesn't have a disease, I want her to be a warrior. I want her to advocate for her health the way you have advocated for your health. I want to talk a little bit about that. You became a very informed patient, very, very young, and an advocate for what you will and you will not accept in treatment. And I think that's something that not only children, but adults don't do enough of, is becoming extremely informed and choosing their treatment pathways. With sickle cell anemia, transfusion is often used to treat a sickle cell crisis. Would you say it is the default therapy?
Yes, that's the automatic protocol for treating sickle cells. They even have something now that is called exchange transfusion, exchange therapy, where they're just exchanging the red blood cells for donor blood cells to try to reduce the number of sickle cells in the patient. Some people have found relief in those avenues, but that's not an option for me. I don't want that to be an option for me because, again, you have to live with what goes into your body and what you
Hmm.
do to your body. When I was doing my research on blood transfusions and alternatives, I've noticed that the alternatives actually yielded better results. I didn't get the infections, I didn't have the long hospital stays, I didn't subject myself to the possibility of rejection and iron overload, which a lot of people who often have to be dependent on blood transfusions, that's what they have to contend with. When I did that research and I saw the scientific data that was like, oh, this is actually going to be better for me. But I have to work in conjunction with the bloodless medicine protocols. I have to build up my blood. I have to be proactive. I have to try to maintain what I can and eat better because now it's a lifestyle that had to shift. You really can't remove the sickle cells completely. They're going to come back. It's still going to create a dependency on donor blood. And we've noticed in the past 5 years, due to COVID, donor blood has declined
Yes.
as people become less and less able to access adequate blood and comparable blood because they also have something where patients fare better when blood is racially connected as well.
Hmm.
There's way too many factors that need to go right using the external blood donor blood donations that again you're gambling with your life when there's tools available if you know to ask for them that could help you build your own blood and improve your own quality of your blood. That's what I want to make sure that people are aware that that even exists and hopefully they can start demanding that their hospitals and their treatment centers actually implement that instead of going straight to blood.
Obviously, when you were young, you had your parents' support in choosing the bloodless pathway. How was it with the physicians? Did it take a long time for physicians to understand your care or to find the right physician to treat you, or was it pretty easy?
It was not easy. In the third installment of my book series, I actually go into that in more detail in the fact that the hospital did force a blood transfusion on me as a child. Currently live with some complications of that earlier blood transfusion that affected me. I'm in my 40s now, and I still have to live with those things. When I talk about you have to live with what goes into your body. You have to live with the choices that people are making about your body. I'm talking from personal experience that I have to contend with these things and it does affect the quality of your life where you should have been able to if you had the choice and then you have the consequence, you chose it. But when that choice is taken away from you and you're faced with the consequence, that it violates I feel violated a lot of times.
Oh, yeah, that's a trauma. Trauma that you bring upon yourself is very different than trauma that's imposed upon you. I first caught on to you through social media, but it was Patricia Ford. Did she help you along the way? She is a well-known
Yes.
bloodless care advocate, patient blood management advocate. She really advocates well and has done so much work with managing and preserving the patient's own blood. So your paths crossed with her? Can you tell
Yes,
me a little bit about that?
absolutely. Because of my run-ins with different hospitals that really did not want to do the bloodless thing. Like every time I come in and they would send so many doctors trying to talk me into getting a blood transfusion, and I'm like, no, thank you. I don't need it. You see my documentation. It's like all
Mhm.
legal forms that says expressively no blood. I had a doctor that she wrote in my medical record that she was going to give me a blood transfusion if my hemoglobin dropped below 6. And I was not aware of this. I just had a feeling that I was fighting for my life. When I willed myself to I just got to get out of it here, So I was just like, just let me get well enough to be able to discharge myself. And I asked for my medical record. Normally they just give you the summary. I said no, I want the entire record. And that's when I learned what the doctor's plan was. So, because of that, it made me very weary of getting treated anywhere that was not going to respect my wishes. I knew about Patricia Ford. I knew that she was the foremost leader in bloodless medicine. She is the doctor that trains all other doctors in the bloodless medicine and bloodless surgery in Philadelphia. And she has the sickle cell clinic, so it was like a twofer. So I'm like, I had someone who knew about sickle cell because I always had to train people of like, this is what sickle cell is, this is what you have to look for. I finally had a doctor who I didn't need to train about my condition, and she already knew about the bloodless path. That was such a relief to find her and to become one of her patients. And I drive an hour to see her once a month just to keep myself maintained. And I love the fact that she listens to me and we have a game plan together and we communicate, and it's a collaboration.
Do you remember a lowest hemoglobin that you can think of that you've managed without a blood transfusion?
5.
Okay. Yeah. I've helped in the care of several patients in the 4 and 5. So very possible, very
Yep.
possible. Anything that's negative from not accepting blood transfusion, have you come across one? Like, does your crisis go longer because you have to wait it out a little bit more or
The only negative that I've ever had in dealing with sickle cell rejecting a blood transfusion has been the needing to fight and advocate time and time again. And it's like, they wanna change my mind. They wanna, and it's like, w it's not just faith-based. Some
Mhm,
people are like, "Well, it's your religion will understand, and your God would
mhm,
understand," and it's like, this is bigger than that, but
mhm,
I appreciate the fact that when I when I am obedient to the principles that I've learned in the Bible,
mhm,
I do better. There's too many risk involved with accepting it than not.
mhm. S Have you seen negative impact from just the sickle cell community that accepts the standard of care without really investigating? They accept the multiple transfusions.
Sadly, yes. But what I find interesting is that most in the sickle cell community would not draw the connection that if their complications was related to the blood. Most honestly do believe that blood transfusions are life-saving measures. When I talk to different sickle cell groups that I'm a part of, I can see the fear and kind of a pushback when I mention bloodless medicine and patient blood management. It's like, but,
Yeah.
like, what if I needed to survive? I
Mhm,
understand the hesitation because that's been the narrative all of our lives is that blood is going to save you. Anyone trying to preach anything contrary to that, it doesn't feel safe. It doesn't really set right. And I acknowledge the fact the science and the evidence has proven that blood blood transfusions have not been confirmed as a positive in the scientific world, in the medical world. It's always been a medical assumption. It to me, it reminds me of the placebo effect, where if you tell someone that they're getting a medicine, even if it's the sugar pill, they feel healed. So that's kind of the reaction that I see when I mention sickle cell and mention bloodless medicine, but I love the fact that because I'm talking about it more, people are getting curious and they're saying, "You know what? Well, what are my options? What other choice do I have?" Now that we finally are opening up the minds to have that conversation, I want to talk about it more. So that's why another reason why I wrote the books. I'm like, let's get this information out there because hopefully, maybe doing something different could allow you to thrive with your sickle cell where you're not having to be in the hospital so often and you learn to intervene sooner. So maybe, you can try to avoid a lot of things going wrong.
I do think it is important to point out that there is growing knowledge and evidence of the risks of transfusion. We have been marketed to believe that blood is life-saving. At times it is. However, there's many, many, many scientists and medical professionals that are joining the camp that patient blood management is always the better, safest options. It produces the best outcomes and it is scientific. So thank you for pointing that out. Now let's talk about how then do you manage your sickle cell crisis? What are the alternatives?
I have a service animal that she helps me. I juice, I make these teas, like this is my hibiscus tea that I'm drinking here. I I research a lot of anti-inflammatory foods and I make sure that I inculcate that in just my normal practice of eating. Hydration is really the number one thing to help get your body just, primed to function better. So you don't want to allow the rut of day to day to let you skip a meal, let you skip drinking water. Like you become intentional. And so as I become more and more intentional, I'm learning a lot of this like recently. So since I've learned these practices, I have not been in the hospital and learned and implemented them. So like those are two different things. But since I've been implementing this practice, I've noticed that I've gotten ahead of my crises a lot of times and I've been able to manage them at home. I have my heating pad on deck all the time. I have my oxygen to try to help build and boost my blood up and boost the oxygen in my system. I I'm very conscious of what foods I eat, and I'm also conscious of eating according to my blood type. I'm still in that young age of having to go through the woman time. Those are the
Mhm.
time of the months that I'm even more depleted, so I have to get ahead of it and boost my blood up before that. I go to Patricia once a month, typically around the time that the lady time's coming, so that I can get my shot of epipoetin. And it's called Procrit or Retacrit, and any of those things to help just give my blood extra little boost to produce more red blood cells for that month. All of those things have been helping me to at least maintain a livable hemoglobin level.
Was just wondering why you become anemic or that you need that right before your period. I know you're going to lose blood during your menstruation. Is your menstruation different than the average woman? Do you bleed more or less? Or why do you need the Procrit?
It's just that my typical hemoglobin is just at 7. I'm
Okay.
just automatically dealing with less than most the average
Okay.
women in general. So any blood loss, my body feels it.
Okay.
Typically during the menstruating week, it goes from 7.5 to maybe 6.8. and it kinda
Okay.
hovers in that range. That means I'm gonna be more tired, more fatigued, I sleep a lot, may have more cramping and pain, and because of that, that made me have to research which herbs could help me get ahead of that. Future people, if like, I look at children, I'm like, "Get the ablation." I got my tubes tied because I didn't wanna have children and pass this on.
Right.
Then they talked about, "Oh, we could have done an ablation." And I'm like, "You could have did all of those things at one time." And it was so frustrating,
Yeah.
but the bleeding aspect of going through all of this can be dangerous every month. You never know how much blood you'll have. And I'm going through the fun thing called perimenopause that
Yes.
gives me an added bonus of like, oh, what's this month going to be like?
Oh,
So
I understand where you're at. Lots of body changes along with a chronic disease. You have been so inspiring and positive in your book. You're encouraging other people to become warriors for your health. What made you write the book and what is your vision? Where are you going?
this book was birthed out of pain. I lost my father unexpectedly to a heart attack earlier this year.
Mm. Oh, I'm so sorry.
And it's weird because it's like, I've always, because I have been the chronically ill person, you kind of become comfortable with the idea that it might be you first.
Mhm.
You don't really process losing someone else.
Mm.
And as I was processing that loss, this book poured out. And I wanted to honor his life, everything that he did to help me through this journey. And I wanted to um, even kind of rewrite history a little bit because I wanted to give Rita Beta in the book a stable environment of where she did get to grow in one home with both parents, with her brothers, and have that as her foundation. That's not quite my life, but I wanted to show that that was possible and that, a lot of people living with this disease may have had that be their upbringing. But I also wanted to acknowledge that, a lot of times we face things in this world so early, so soon that, we feel unequipped to deal with. And it's not that it's anyone's fault. But when you're born with any disease, you are literally born to be a warrior because every day that you fight that disease, fight that disorder, you're proving that you're bigger than it, that it,
Mm.
it doesn't have to overtake you. It doesn't have to identify, like, you don't have to identify with it. And it doesn't need to consume everything. You get to choose the parts of yourself that matter. You get to build that. I appreciate being able to create something that hopefully a child may be able to read and see a part of themselves in and see that they can be strong, that they are being brave every time that they go through a very painful incidents and they say, you know what, let's do this, doc. And they stick their arm out and they're ready for a needle because that took me a while to get there. It took me a long time to get comfortable with needles. I had a fighting fear of needles. And second someone came out, with
Yeah.
and that's back when they used to prick your finger.
Yes.
I was so ready to fight. So
Oh,
it's something that processing all of the layers of uh, trauma that you may go
yeah.
through in childhood. It's actually called ACE, where the adverse childhood experiences. I aced all of the aces when it came to the to things that happens to children that we grow into as an adult and carry. with us, it doesn't have to make you feel like this life is not worth living. That's the biggest part that a lot of people that I've met with this disease and others, they struggle with. Why should I go on? Why continue to
Mm,
fight? Your life can have so many endless possibilities when you choose to become a warrior every day.
that is beautiful. That is the exact reason why I bought the book for my granddaughter is because exactly the words that you spoke. So I got that message without knowing. I'm so glad that you spelled it out, your reasons why, but I just want you to know that it's been effective because I purchased the book and I could see that intent behind your book. I did not know the story of your father. That's beautiful. It even makes the part in the book about your father even more touching. I have the first book. I definitely plan to get her the series. I think you held up the second one and it was about grief. Is that correct? Can you
Yes.
tell us a little bit about the second book,
So,
Finding Your Way to Good Grief?
yes. And I have the picture of my dad playing basketball because he was playing basketball when he passed.
Oh, wow.
He's always played basketball, like, that has been his love, his first love and pastime was basketball, and all of my brothers play, they're excellent and talented. It was something that we don't get to choose how we pass, but it it kinda hurt a little bit less. I appreciate the fact that I didn't need to lie about the man he was. I always love um,
Yeah,
when you can be truthful about a person, especially
mhm,
in, writing their life story because, we all have ups and downs. We all
sure.
have moments where, you know, but to see him go through his hills and valleys and be on top of things and be the reaching the potential he was meant to reach. And that's the other reason why it motivated me to start living. Because again,
Yeah,
I was coasting and kinda like, hiding and being in the background, and I said, "You know what? I need to speak up more. I'm sitting on this information. I need to share it because maybe this could help someone else."
I think your dad would be so proud of the way that you've processed grieving his loss and how you've turned it into a positive, just like you've turned your childhood genetic disease into a positive. And you're right, this can help all children going through whatever trauma, medical or otherwise.
Right.
It's a very empowering book. And so I'm really happy for people to hopefully see it. I obtained mine on Amazon. Is that where everyone gets it?
Yeah, right now, it's only available on Amazon. I am working towards creating more platforms eventually. So it's, definitely easy to, put my name, Syreeta Wright, in there or Welcome to the World Warrior, and my 2 books would be the top 2 choices of those.
Thank you so much for allowing me to just ask you anything about sickle cell. Hopefully, the listeners have also learned. It's so great to have a conversation when you feel comfortable enough to just ask anything. And I certainly did with you. I'm going to be watching you and see where you go with this.
Thank you, and thank you again for having me. I'm so happy we've met.
Me too.
If you enjoy the conversations we're having, don't forget to comment, like, share, and subscribe. It helps bring awareness to the importance of understanding decisions when it comes to your blood. Hang out for a special song from Syreeta Wright entitled Bent but Unbroken, music created from her poetry. And follow her on YouTube. The link is in our description.
Hmm. starts deep in the blood, where the red rivers flow, where oxygen should dance, but sometimes it don't go. A twist in the code, a curve in the cell, a crescent moon shape that don't carry well when those cells get stuck. Can't slide through the stream, pain lights up my body like a waking dream. No warning bell, just a silent war in a vibe of air I didn't ask for. It's in my bones, it's in my veins, a hidden storm behind my name. But I'm not just what's wrong with me, I'm more than pain, I'm poetry. Sickle cell bends me, but I don't break. Running on strength that pain can't take. Every crisis tries to slow me down, but I rise again, I wear my crown. Blood may sickle, but I still flow. Bend but unbroken, that's how I glow. It's the shape of a moon when it should be round. It clogs up the roads with lights passed around. Organs get tired, my heart beats fast. I breathe through the moments I pray will pass. Sometimes it's fever, sometimes it's bone. Sometimes I just need to be left alone. A pain so deep you can't quite explain, but I've learned how to dance in the rain. It's in my blood, not who I am. A warrior made from a different strand. Doctors can treat me, but they can't define the courage that runs through this blood of mine. Sickle cell bends me, but I don't break. Running on strength that pain can't take. Every crisis tries to slow me down, but I rise again, I wear my crown. Blood may sickle, but I still flow. Bend but unbroken, that's how I glow. Oxygen's the breath of life we chase, but my cells forget their shape and space. They block the flow, cause pain to stay, but I keep shining anyway. Bloodless medicine, opioids, and all that care, but the strongest things, the love that's there. Family, friends, they hold me tight. I'm living proof that dark brings light. Sickle cell bends me, but I don't break. I'm more than the battles that I face. Every scar's a story, every tear's a flame. I'm blood, I'm breath, I'm more than a name. It may sickle, but I still flow. Bend but I'm broken, that's how I glow. So when you see me walking slow, know I